Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I am Dion Marshall. I'm a nursing student with Excelsior College, and today I'm having a teaching session on the human papillomavirus and the HPV vaccine. The purpose of this teaching session is to educate about the importance of immunizing young girls with the HPV vaccine. This is in alignment with the Healthy People 2020 goal of increasing immunization rates as we tend to decrease infectious diseases, and in this case, with the HPV vaccine, cancers. You may ask, what is Healthy People 2020? This Healthy People 2020 is done in conjunction with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. They have developed at least 42 different topics and objectives that are geared towards health promotion and disease prevention nationwide, and these goals are also timelined right now for the year 2020. The topic that we are discussing today is, of course, increasing immunization rates in effort to decrease infectious diseases and cancers. Some of you may never heard of human papillomavirus or the HPV vaccine, so I have a little pretest to see how much information that you ladies may be aware of, and then gear our teaching session toward informing you of that. With the show of hands for yes, have you ever heard of the human papillomavirus? Raise your hand. Do you know of any diseases that this virus causes? By the show of hands, let me see. For yes? Okay. Did you know that cervical cancer kills more African American women than any other cultural group? How many of you were aware of that? Okay. Did you know about the HPV vaccine? Okay, half of you. Are you aware of who should be immunized with the HPV vaccine? Okay. Do you know where someone can get the HPV vaccine? Where is this vaccine available and distributed at? Okay, well, let's talk about what is HPV. HPV is a virus. It is called the human papillomavirus, and it is known to cause papillomas, which are warts. There are about 150 HPV viruses that have been detected thus far. Excuse me. And they're each accompanied with a number. So there's HPV number 1 all the way up to HPV number 150. And these diseases cause warts. They cause warts cervically, in the genital area, on the vulva. They cause warts wherever they come in contact, skin to skin, or mucous membrane to mucous membrane. These warts also cause cancer. HPV can cause cancer in the cervix, on the vulva, on the penis, in the mouth, in the throat, in the rectum, and the anus. And HPV is known to cause 99.7% of cervical cancers. Cervical cancers rates among African women are the highest. Of all the cultural groups, African American women die at a higher rate of cervical cancer. Transmission of HPV. How is this virus transmitted? It is transmitted by skin-to-skin contact, and it is also transmitted by sex. It can be transmitted by vaginal sex, anal sex, oral sex. protection against the HPV virus? Well, pre-exposure, if you are a young person, you can get vaccinated against the HPV virus. Another way a person can protect pre-exposure against the HPV virus is having condoms during sexual activity. Condoms do not necessarily protect 100%, as areas that are not covered by the condom can be infected with HPV vaccine. The other way of protection against HPV vaccine is monogamy. If you're not infected, your partner's not infected, a monogamous relationship will keep you away from the HPV virus. Post-exposure, condoms, monogamy, and preventatively pap smears every 1 to 2 years so that you would be able to detect any abnormalities in your pap smear and have immediate intervention if so be it. Important information about HPV. It is a virus that is out there. Per the CDC, 79 million Americans are infected with HPV. And every year, 14 million more become infected with HPV. Another way of transmission of this virus is with pregnant women that may become infected with HPV or have HPV virus. HPV can be transmitted to the young infant, causing warts to develop in the throat, a disease that is very detrimental to the children. It's called recurrent respiratory papillomatosis, and it can kill the baby. So this infection is very serious, and guess what? There is a vaccine to prevent it. Talking about cancer rates. HPV incidence of cancer rates with African American women are outlined with this red line on the graph. As you can see, the purple line is for Hispanic women. So Hispanic women have a higher incidence of contracting the HPV virus. African women right underneath, and the other cultures shortly thereafter. What is significant about this graph is that the other graph, cervical cancer deaths. African American women, again by the red line, die at a higher rate than any other cultural group. You may say, why is that? Why are more African American women dying of cervical cancer? Because there are barriers. There are barriers that prevent, that allows for this to happen. And we're going to discuss some of that. One of the biggest barrier is education. And this is why we're having this teaching session. Education and educating people about HPV, which is a virus, about the diseases, the cancers that this virus causes, especially cervical cancer. 99.7%, and I can't say that enough, 99.7% of cervical cancers are caused by this virus. Then there are throat viruses, throat cancers, mouth cancers, cancers of the rectum. These are all caused in part by HPV. So getting the information out there is a barrier. Another barrier is that people are not aware that there's a vaccine to prevent this from happening. So education is the barrier to why women are not aware of that. And as you can see from this group today, half of you were aware and the other half was unaware. So that's why we're here to discuss this today. Now you may say, who should get vaccinated? Like, can I sign up and get a vaccine? How does this vaccine thing work? Vaccines for the HPV vaccine usually distributed between 9 years old and 26 years old. The ideal age for immunization against HPV vaccine is between 11 and 12, and girls and young boys both can be immunized against this vaccine. The idea is the earlier the better. Kids don't like their shots, so if you get it to them early, they have 2 shots to get for immunizations. For the ages of 9 to 12 to 14, 2 doses. The 9-year-old to the 14-year-old, 2 doses. One initially and the other follow-up dose 6 months later. We are trying to get the younger children vaccinated for HPV because it's very important. Adolescents and young adults can also be vaccinated against HPV. The ages between 15 and 26, however, 3 doses. One initially, the second dose 2 months after the first dose, and the third dose 6 months after the second dose. So initially, 11 to 12 is the average age, but you can begin vaccinating your child at 9 years old. And last week, I vaccinated my little Bella for the HPV vaccine. And she's due for it in 6 months. We should be around Christmas time, and I cannot think of a better gift giving my child than preventing this infection and subsequent cervical cancer. So once again, who should be vaccinated? Young children, young girls, young boys, the average age 11 to 12, but vaccination can begin at 9 years old. The younger group between 9 and 14, 2 doses. The adolescents between 14 and 26, 3 doses. So let's try to get it in there. And the younger group, 2 doses, immunization, protection. Safety of the vaccine. Of course, that is always an important question. You know, what's the side effects? Can anything bad happen? Well, with the HPV vaccine, it's basically the same side effects like all the other vaccinations that you're vaccinated against, your MMR and your Tdap and all these other ones. Redness, possible soreness as the site of injection, fever that's treated with Tylenol or Motrin as needed. They may have a headache, they may feel a little tired, but those are just general side effects. Now for people that have allergies to the components of the vaccination, that are contraindicated cannot get the vaccine. Women that are pregnant cannot get the HPV vaccine. It is not recommended for pregnant women, people that are allergic to the vaccine. However, women that are breastfeeding can get the HPV vaccine. So it's basically a safe vaccine, no different from the other vaccines that we immunize our children with. It is one of the most important vaccines also because it does prevent against, a slew of cancers and prevent the spread of this virus, because this virus is out there. 79 million people walking around with HPV, and every year 14 more million become infected. So protection against the virus, against this virus that causes this detrimental cancer, this cancer that kills African American women more than any other cultural group, it is there. Where can I get this? You can get it at your pediatrician's office. Every pediatrician on this island has HPV vaccine in their office. You may not have a pediatrician. You can also get this vaccine at the Department of Health Immunization Clinic, and the Department of Health gives this vaccine for free. There's a grant program that I found out about in studying and getting the information for this teaching session through the CDC. At the Department of Health, they have this brochure that they also give out, and I'm going to have each of you have one today. All the information we discussed and some numbers in the back to call if you have any further questions about this vaccine. It can be given at your pediatrician's office and at the Department of Health. Please get your children, young girls and boys, vaccinated. We can save millions of lives doing so. We can slow down the spread of HPV. There's millions of it out there, and we can prevent cervical cancer by 99.7%. That is like an astronomical number. We can basically limit cervical cancer from HPV once we begin to give these vaccines. Now, it is not required for school, and I think that is another reason why it's not out there as it should, but we should be vaccinating our children because it is there, the information is there, the studies are there. It is a lifesaver. We have it for free in our community. Let's vaccinate our kids. Now we have a short post test that involves, it's also in your packet, so you can go ahead and fill out your post test so that we can discuss HPV and the vaccine and address any other questions that you ladies might have. But it's very important. Once again, I cannot discuss and profess enough how important it is. We can basically wipe out this this virus with this vaccine. And if I did not feel so strongly about this, I would not have vaccinated my daughter. Thank you all so much for coming in. Let's go ahead and do this test. And thank you very much.